To Oregon now, where a federal probe has been launched to find out how a genetically modified strain of wheat began sprouting up in a local farm. Genetically modified wheat has never been approved by the Agriculture Department for use in the U.S. Monsanto tested version of its Roundup Ready wheat between 1998 and 2005, but retracted its application from the USDA's regulatory approval process. So imagine the Eastern Oregon farmer's surprise when he discovered that this wheat was growing on his farm. To discuss this federal probe and the financial implications of this discovery and what it could how it could affect the wheat market, I'm joined now by Andy Stepanian. He's the co-founder of SparrowMedia.net. Andy, thank you for coming in and talking to us. First of all, talk about GMO wheat. Why was it never approved for use, and what is the significance of this discovery in the Oregon field?
Well, Monsanto has applied on several occasions for various products, various crops, to be genetically modified or prepared as Roundup Ready to run in conjunction with a system of herbicides that they also put out on market. Now, they did not do this with wheat because Canada turned around, I believe, in 2005 and said that the European Union, as well as Japan, would not allow for imports of wheat that could be contaminated with genetically modified organisms and therefore threatened the economic product that we're now producing to send to those countries. And so for that decision alone is why they no longer decided to approve these products for market. And it's kind of questionable that now, over 7 years later, they're appearing in the wild on people's farms.
Now, as a result, you have spoken a little bit about this economic impact. As a result of this discovery, wheat futures dropped 0.5% today, and Japan has stopped wheat imports until the problem is investigated and dealt with. So it's hurting our economy. It's eroding international trust in our products. What does this say about the potential impacts that Monsanto and biotech businesses can have on the country?
Well, it's tremendous, and it kind of speaks to a larger hypocrisy in that certain lawmaking bodies will favor businesses that they're in line with or businesses that lobby them over the economic incentive and economic prosperity of our country. And so their constituency should be the American people. It shouldn't be an individual corporation based in St. Louis, Missouri, like Monsanto. And so Monsanto, along with many other organizations, have lobbied significantly throughout the years, members of Congress and also in local states, to get legislation that behests their interests. So there was a spending bill recently this year that introduced a piece of legislation that would not require labeling of genetically modified foods because the imposition would create for Monsanto. And that is something about fast-tracking their products to market. It's favoring the business when almost all of Americans would like to at least know where their food is coming from, where their food is sourced. And especially folks in Europe are particularly bothered by the idea of having these GMO products now mixed into the market.
And that's not to mention the so-called Monsanto Protection Act that made its way into the Agriculture Appropriations Bill. Now, let's switch the conversation just a little bit. Meanwhile, in North Carolina, journalist Will Potter discovered a new proposed legislation that would make it illegal for whistleblowers to expose all corporations, including Monsanto, and how they could potentially affect the environment and public health. We've talked about ag-gag laws in the past, but can you briefly explain for our viewers what an ag-gag law is and whether or not this proposed legislation qualifies as one?
Well, Will Potter has worked tirelessly to bring the issue of ag-gag laws to the forefront. He's done that through his blog, greenisthenewred.com. I encourage everyone to go there and view multiple stories related to ag-gag. But essentially, ag-gag bills were penned by the American Legislative Exchange Council. They were a model bill that was passed on from state to state, and different states have appropriated either all or pieces of these ag-gag legislations that essentially say that if you blow the whistle on a factory farm that's brutally abusing animals, in the case of some factory farms, chickens being abused or downed cows being moved with backhoes and other types of heavy machinery, if you videotape this, if you photograph it, if you blow the whistle on these corporations and thus resulting in these corporations being brought up on municipal charges, what'll happen is that you could be charged underneath these ag-gag laws, and the penalties vary from state to state because they're state bills, but in North Carolina in particular, the language is so broad that it could say that if you're doing this with any company, not just an animal enterprise, not just a factory farm, but if, say, Monsanto, if you blew the whistle on Monsanto, you could be charged as a felon for reporting on their misconduct.
So, Andy, yes or no, is this one part of an ag-gag law?
Well, because the American Legislative Exchange Council pens what they call model legislation, states adopt either all or part of it. So the language of the ag-gag bill is inserted into a larger bill. Imagine it as a bundle. There's 8 different things in the bundle. One of the 8 things is analogous to all the other states' ag-gag legislation. So I would go as far as saying that what is going on in North Carolina is an ag-gag bill. It's bundled with other things. It's masked, it's veiled, but it's an ag-gag bill, and the language there is even worse because it's more overbroad. And again, check out greenisthenewred.com and the writing of Will Potter, because he's covering this extensively.
And Andy, we have a very short amount of time left, but what is the chance of this bill actually getting through? We've seen one after another of these ag-gag bills be struck down or repealed.
It's really hit or miss. I think that there's been a tremendous public outcry, in part to the work of Will and the Humane Society of the United States, Mercy for Animals, and Compassion Over Killing. They've really brought this issue to the forefront and solicited mainstream support from individuals like Carrie Underwood when she tweeted at Governor Halsem that resulted in the bill to be repealed in Tennessee. But unfortunately, it's on the books in Iowa and in other states. Indiana's ag-gag law is also extensive, but it's been struck down. We need to make sure that this happens in every single state and it doesn't keep popping back up. Unfortunately, the world of these lobbyists, they're going to keep hacking away at it to make sure that their legislation behits their clients.
We're going to have to leave it there. Andy Stepanian, co-founder of SparrowMedia.net.